Expedition 33 is a fun game to play with all its flashy skill animations and effects. But for this run, we are not going to see any of those. Yes, you heard it right. Can we beat Expedition 33 in expert mode with only the free aim and basic attacks only? We only have one important rule for this run, and that is only deal damage with free aim and basic attacks. That's it. I shall get into additional details as we encounter them, so let's go. Our very first encounter in this game, of course, is our tutorial section. Here you can see that we are taking quite a while to win against Maelle. This also sets up the first challenge of the run, which is how do we stay alive. I could parry her attacks, however, since you do get a counter attack which deals damage if done perfectly, we are going to be dodging most or every attack in this game to survive. So after almost 2 minutes, we clear this section. Now, mimes are another thing that you can't really handle well right now. Basically, they are extremely resistant to damage in general until you break them, which is something that we can't really do. Since this is my only second run, I actually missed this mime and wanted to know if he drops anything important. So, after a couple of minutes of attempts, I get the kill and get awarded a song? Well, moving right along. Now, the second encounter with Maelle is not that different from the first one. Just dodge her attacks, shoot and slice her, and you should get another festival token. Now, this token is entirely optional, but make sure to pick up the weird pictus from this guy that we are gonna be using later down the line. Now, after skipping most of the lore dump, we get to fight our first Nevron with Gustave. Gustave is going to be our main damage dealer for Act 1, and skill-wise, it does not really offer that much outside a powerful team buff for damage and some self-healing and sustain. On our next fight, we are joined by Lune, a powerful spellcaster, auto attacker, that will be providing us with some heals and revives early on. Sadly, since Lune is mainly a spellcaster and all of her learnable skills outside revives and heals are damage dealing, she will not be part of our final party. She will be with us though, similar to Gustave in majority of Act 1. Dodger, Critical Burn, Dead Energy 2, and Burning Shots are some of the first pictuses that you will find in the game. They are all essential for our Faba build, so make sure to grab those early and master them. They shall be key to making this run less of a hassle to complete. The very first chromatic Nevron you will encounter in the game is a Lancelier. This Nevron, I would say, is a must kill for every run as he gives you the augmented attack pictus, which boosts your basic attack damage by a whooping 50%. This is definitely a big damage boost if we are relying on our attacks for damage. Now, the basic strategy for this monster is to apply Burn to speed up the fight. Burn also increases our critical hit rate, which further speeds up the run, and I also took advantage of Gustave's powerful buff to deal a little bit more damage, further speeding up the fight. After getting accustomed to his attacks, I managed to get my prizes on the first attempt. Evette is the first official boss of the game and he is not that tough, to be honest. His spells have fairly long wind-ups and are fairly easy to dodge. He does summon minions once you deal around 25% damage to him. These have weaknesses that we can exploit with free aim, and with the help of Dead Energy 2, should not take too long to kill. When Evette goes down to around 30% HP, he then gains a lot of shields. Normally this is pretty tough to remove, but for us it's pretty simple. So keep at him, dodge well, and we should nab him fairly easily. And don't forget to pick up the empowering attack Tictus for more damage on our base attack after the fight upstairs. After getting into flying waters, we pick up marking shots which increase our damage further when hitting marked targets. We then proceed to pick up Maelle from the manor, and as we all know, Maelle is a very powerful character with her stance changing mechanics. Virtuoso is one of those stances that boosts her damage up by around 200%. She is going to be the backbone for our DPS, but until we can consistently be in virtuoso stance, she is going to be like everyone else, a rootin' shootin' cowboy, or cowgirl I suppose. The Curator fight introduces us to jump mechanics. The jump window is fairly large, which is good for us. However, we won't be able to utilize the counter attack mechanic because it deals damage, which is against the rules of the run. So after a hop, skip, and a jump, we now unlock the ability to upgrade weapons and use Color of Lumina to allow us to equip more Pictos on each character. Speaking of Pictos, since Gustav will eventually be leaving us, I did not spend any Lumina on him. However, since I still need damage assistance, I opted to give some to Lune. By the way, something I forgot to mention, when leveling up stats, I'm putting everything into Might for damage, and then followed by whichever stat had the highest scaling for the currently equipped weapon. Now, before tackling the next Nev run, we take a detour to pick up Augmented Aim, which is additional 50% free aim damage, and Rewarding Mark, which gives plus 2 AP when hitting mark targets. Now, this Burgeon fight is entirely optional, but when I was recording this, I did not know that. The reward for killing this beefcake of a lad is augmented counter, which is not really that useful for us. The Burgeon fight is basically an RNG fest. The Burgeon will consume 2 of your characters, and you better pray that it eats Maelle last. You might start to notice that really the main driving factor in winning these fights in this run is how well I can dodge and survive. But it is still fun to consider how each fight plays out. So, after 3 fights, I finally kill the Burgeon, and although the ability is bad, the stats on the augmented counter Pictus is decent enough to be useful. Another Pictus that I missed in my first playthrough is Versatile, which is also amazing for a setup. I also beat up the Chromatic Troubadour for Luna's free aim weapon. Now, the Goblau fight is not that different from the Evette fight earlier. He summons 4 flowers at 75 health, which we can dispatch off easily, ensuring that he does not get stronger and hit harder. At 25%, quadruples the flowers. At this point, we then focus on the red ones only and forgo the blue ones. And finally, on his last few turns, he does manage to get a turn where he is able to absorb reds, but since he is low enough at this point, we just take the kill and win. Now, Petanks I thought would be a problem in this run, but fortunately they are all actually manageable. We want to ensure we kill them as they provide a lot of loot to power us up. We also get to pick up another useful Pictus, Burning Mark, that applies burn on hitting mark targets. Now, I know the comment section may say this breaks the rules of the run, but since it is applied by using Faba, then this gets a free pass. Now, in the Ancient Sanctuary, we meet a new type of Nevron, the Sakapat, or however you want to pronounce that word. They come in different forms, but the first one we encounter is not really a pushover by any means. If you are not careful, like I am, you will get your party killed almost instantly. They do have their own weaknesses, but for some bizarre reason, even though this is my second playthrough, I forgot to take advantage of it. As you can see, it has a glowing spot on its right arm, which, if you focus fire on, severely weakens him to the point of almost dying. Unfortunately, if you do manage to kill them, they all seem to have a death wish, and they do want you to join them. This is one of the hardest things for me to dodge, honestly, but after a few tries, you do get past this monstrosity. The ultimate Sakapatat is an amalgamation of basically all the other Sakapatats you have encountered. Fortunately, I was now able to recognize it also has a weakness. His weakness though is not as exposed compared to the others. Now, I don't know if this is intentional from the developers, but the position of your characters does matter in this fight. Both Lune and Maelle have an easier time hitting his weakness, Lune having the better angle. As you can see, breaking his arm removes his ability to use his cannon attack and is now limited to swings and catapult fires, which are easier to dodge and Add the fact that Sakapatats are weak to fire, which is the element Lune and Maelle are using, should make this fight easy to win. The first thing you want to pick up in the industrial village is one of the best damage Pictos, Roulette, which randomizes the damage you deal, which might seem like a bad Pictus, but on average you should get more damage out overall. Also, make sure you use Maelle on the fourth fight in the arena, the one against Ciel, our fourth party member. This will get you Maelle's best weapon that makes her start on Virtuoso stance. This turns Maelle's pistols into freaking bazookas in terms of damage. This, together with the Roulette Pictus, should make short work of majority of her random encounters moving forward. Francois here is our first victim, and you can see how he melts to our damage right now. This is how basic fights are gonna look like moving forward, and that's gonna be good for us. The Lampmaster is up next, and he does seem easy on his first phase inside the cave. However, I did not manage to first attempt kill this boss all throughout, but I did manage to get past his first phase all the time. As usual, it took me quite a while to understand his moveset, but what is really tough about him is his second phase. He opens up his second phase with a big party-wide attack that in expert mode basically kills the entire party unless you have some points into health or have some survivability coming from your equipped Pictos. It can either be a wide sweeping slash or a light energy blast. If you manage to dodge these consistently, then the only thing left to worry about is his lamp mechanics, which is very easy to follow. Just shoot the lamps in order they light up and you should be fine. Persevere and you should beat him without any problems. The final boss of the Forgotten Battlefield is Dualliste. As usual, his most annoying attack for me is his AoE Sword Ground Stab. In his first phase, it's fairly easy to get through, but his second phase is where things get more exciting. He upgrades his AoE attack by adding an additional hit. He gains some gradient attacks, which by the way we can't really dodge due to the nature of this challenge run. So any attacks moving forward done by monsters that are gradient in variety are something that might just deal damage to us or outright kill us. As usual, in order to defeat this boss, your dodging skills are gonna be tested, and when you defeat him, you get awarded with a cutscene kill on him, which is pretty amazing, I would say. After being Dualist, you will be able to unlock the ability to break paint spikes, which is done by finding at least 4 lost gestrels. We backtrack 2 Pictos that help our damage output. One is Piercing Shot, which adds 25% damage to our free aim in addition to ignoring shield, which is going to be useful on certain enemies coming up. Another is a powerful Shots Pictos that gives us a chance to buff ourselves on free aim. We then finally get to fight Renoir, the white-haired man in front of the manor. This guy is annoying to fight for several reasons. First, his animations are also baity. Is that even a word? His animation wind-ups are also varied that even after fighting him a couple of times, you sometimes get tricked into dodging too early. Another reason he is annoying is he has an attack that can banish your character. It is similar to getting eaten by a virgin, but it's more irritating as you can't get that character back by any means. They are permanently removed from your team for the duration of the fight, and they're actually not dead, so revives don't work. They're just completely gone and do not exist. Now, do you remember a rule of only dealing damage via Faba? This move's final hit is a gradient attack, which means we are not allowed to dodge it. In our case, it's an instant reset if he chooses to do this on Maelle first, as she is most of our damage output. Now, I do think I could have beaten Renoir here if I grinded him a bit more, kinda learned about his moveset a little bit, but I wanted an easier time, so I went back and got 2 more Pictos to add to our arsenal. One is in Medias Res, and the other is Recovery. We did not really get them for their ability, but it's fun to have, but more for the stats they provide. On my next attempt to beat Renoir, I made the mistake of trying to snipe the healers that he summons around 25% HP. I also optimized my units and changed Maelle's weapon to Brularum to maximize burn damage every turn. I retried and focused instead on him and not his summons and managed to kill him in under 3 minutes. Good job, us. I also make a detour into the Falling Leaves dungeon to pick up a very useful Pictus in the form of Beneficial Contamination. This really helps us as we can apply either Burn or Mark to trigger its effects. In the Visages area, we get to meet the first Axon. Here, we are given the option of fighting the boss immediately or trying to weaken him by dealing with 3 different masks in 3 separate locations. I did attempt to fight the Visages straight on with surprisingly decent results. I won't talk about him just yet, but do know that on my first attempt, I managed to get into the second phase and got him down to around 30% HP. I do believe that with a bit more grinding, I could have napped the kill, but I opted to visit the optional paths, not really to weaken the boss, but more of to get more loot. We all want that precious loot, by the way. The main reason I lost to him was not because of the extra healing, which is provided by the Joy Mask, not by the Anger Mask providing extra turns, or the exhaust applied by the Sadness Masks. It's more of me not dodging well enough to survive and finish the fight. On his second phase, he can also buff himself up to allow him to get shields when he is hitting your team. Couple that ability with some of his AoE attacks and he does get quite a lot of shields at that matter. We don't care about those though, as we can ignore their thanks to our Pictos abilities, and I ended up deciding not to grind as I really wanted the extra loot. The side paths are not that hard. They are basically slightly beefed up Nevrons and go out without major problems. There are some amazing loots though that we can pick up. One is Contorso versus weapon that allows him to break targets. Something I should have utilized but ended up only using on mimes. There's also Confident Fighter, 30% damage boost but you're not allowed to heal. And Glass Cannon, which allows you to deal 25% damage but take the same in return, which is something you could steal from this Nevron and not have to fight him at all. And finally, Double Burns, which kinda explains itself. You also get to meet the brother of the Mask Keeper. They both rely on shields, but as mentioned before, those don't exist for us. After practicing and getting our dodges on point, we get another reward from this monster, Siraso, another weapon for Verso. Honestly, I believe I could have used this weapon and added Verso to the party, but I opted to use Monoko as my last party member with Maelle and Shiel, as I did not get to play both of them on my first playthrough. Next up is Tisseur. Tisseur? I don't know how to pronounce that word. This boss is also optional, similar to the mask, but taking her out, makes the boss fight a lot easier. You get the anti-charm Pictos once you beat her. Compared to the 3 masks where you just have to beat some slightly beefed up Nevrons, this boss can really hold down his own. One notable attack is this combo composed of double punches, double sweeps, into a needle attack. It took me some time to get that rhythm down. She also curses your team at the start of combat, which means you can't really drag the fight too long. Although, when you do die, you can revive your party members, but that's gonna be a lot of hassle. She can also launch glissandos at you that hit very hard if you fail to evade them. She does not have any gradient attacks I know of, so with a little more practice, you should be able to riddle her with bullets for a win. While I let you watch my fight with this glissando in the background, let's talk about some strategies I have been employing in this run. First, I basically had 2 builds I used throughout the run. The first is for killing regular Nevrons, which mainly is comprised of Pictus that say plus damage. This allows us to kill most encounters with Maelle thanks to her Virtuoso stance on turn 1. The other build is if the bosses hit too hard that I die in 1 hit. At this point, I remove things that make me take more damage or anything similar. Glass Cannon is one that usually goes when I have to increase our survivability. If I can beat the boss with my current setup, I go to the continent and use up my Lumina to squeeze in more Pictus, therefore more damage. For my boss battle so far, I focus on Maelle for my DPS, Lune and Moko for items usage, and healing, some reviving as well. And finally, CL or Verso for AP batteries and other bombs with some DPS on the side when there's nothing else better to do. Dodging and mastering your opponent's attacks is also crucial, as it's the backbone of our survival. Sometimes it's an audio cue or sometimes a visual one, whatever works as long as you get to dodge, especially in expert mode. And lastly, have some fun and try out different builds. The reason why I really went into this challenge run is because I'm not that good with timing like those QTE in those skills. It's probably a skill issue on my end, but sometimes I just watched the visuals too much and ended up missing on the click for their QTE events. But that's just me. Before we take on Sirene, I don't know. These words, I don't know how to pronounce them. Go ahead and visit this merchant down below to pick up 3 more pictos that are really amazing, especially the double mark pictos, which allows us to remark marked targets. The Sirene fight, although fun, seems incomplete in my opinion. Unlike other bosses, she does not get a second phase. That does not mean she is a pushover though. Her health might be low, as shown by Maelle taking her down to half in one combo, but I think to compensate, she does have some nasty AoE attacks up her sleeves. Like, literally at her sleeves. By the way, before anything else, don't forget to equip your anti-charm pictus that you got from Tisseur. Sirene is a master of AoE attacks. One of her nasty AoE attacks is when she summons 5 dancers and they kinda try to sweep on you. The timing on their attacks is pretty tricky, but get through that and you have to deal with more AoE attacks. She can also attack with her dress, another AoE move. She can also throw Glissandro comets at you. She can also have those Glissandros do some ground pounds over on the side, 2 of them. And really that just tells you she's a freaking AoE machine. And to put icing on the cake, when you do get her down to 25%, she sends in a barrage of attacks with her throwing a huge Colosseum at you in the end. So, how's that for AoE? After taking down the 2 Axons, we now get the ability to get into the Monolith, where the Paintress resides, or maybe hides. Before we fight the final boss though, we have to do some side quests. There is a Pictos behind this chromatic version. You can just steal it from literally under him, or fight like what I did here. I did get a favorable RNG from this boss, luckily. Normally, if you remember on our last fight with the Virgin, we wanted Maelle to get eaten last, which is what happens here. Unfortunately, I did mess up on keeping Maelle alive and I had to resort to my backup team. But thanks to Verso's weapon here, we managed to break the Virgin and get an extra turn of damage in, and after that, we do get the win as well. So, we are dealing enough damage to even deal with some chromatics here. So, I do like this challenge run. It does make us feel a lot stronger in the end. Now, the reason you see me here is not because I wanted to make the game easier, by the way, but I wanted to get a specific kind of fluid that helps me kill the train boss in the ice location in the Monolith. I did get the anti-freeze ability that allows me to fight the boss if I really wanted to, but unfortunately, I forgot about him. Maybe I could do it in a different run. Maybe a different challenge run? Any thoughts? This is another optional fight that you can skip entirely on a fresh playthrough. I failed to kill this monster on my first, and of course I wanted some revenge, or wanted to kill it at least. I primarily focused on dispatching his minions, and then proceeded to demolish the boss afterwards. It's actually amazing what you can do with a proper build, and I actually felt stronger on this run than my first, considering this is a challenge run. Well, I guess the extra knowledge did help me navigate this run a lot better, but I've seen videos that really break the game wide open, so maybe you could try doing some of those in the near future. The Renoir 2 fight is the third to the last fight we have to do before we enter post-game content. Unlike Renoir 1, he does have a second phase this time around. He still has that vanish attack that deletes a member from your party for the duration of the fight, so again, we have to pray to the RNG gods to not pick Maelle and have her survive for the longest. For this fight, I ended up adding a lot of survivability to my build so that I can have room for error. This means I can mess up my evades, but not forever, which I actually really needed at this time. There's a lot more of those baity moves, so watch out for those. Once you get him below 50% HP, he summons Aslan to help him out. He also gets a full heal, so we are back to square one here. He also has this rapid attack that has a very quick wind up, so be ready on the dodge finger. Overall, it took me around 45 minutes of trying to get this kill, but I finally did it. Don't worry, if I finish in under an hour, you should do a lot better. Okay, 2 more fights to go. Up next is the Paintress. If it took me 45 minutes of attempts to take down Renoir 2, it took me a little more than 2 hours of attempts to get through the Paintress. Basically around 3 times the time because I think she was tougher on me than Renoir. So what made this fight tough? Let's try to break it down. She opens up the fight with her Meteor Strike ability. Dodge-wise, it is not that tough to evade because it has a fixed rhythm between the hits. And as long as you dodge the first hit, you should be able to dodge the rest. She also has a triple meteor attack that does not have a very clear audio cue, so I relied more on the visual cue for this attack instead. She also has this pulsing ball attack that is also confusing, but the timing here is when the pulse goes in, and that is when you have to press the dodge button. And finally, she also has a very high single target attack that at my gear setup basically always one-shots any of my party members. In her second phase is where her attacks really pick up the most. You do get a free turn here as she buffs up and brings out her paintbrush, and you should take some time to really understand what you have to do in this fight. She upgrades her Meteor Strike ability, and similar to the first one, it has a set pattern and rhythm. Dodge the first one, and you should get the other ones just fine. She also has this 8-hit attack combo that took me by surprise the first time. Initially, the hits might seem all single target, but make sure that you are still ready to dodge the last hit as it is AoE. And if you're not really attentive, then you just might get your party wiped instantly. She also has her common triple paintbrush attack that I would say is the easiest to dodge of all her second phase attacks. The windups are also very telegraphed, so they are also easy to dodge. You could have someone buff Powerful and Shell to negate this on death. And about the curse that she applies, you can basically ignore that as it's not really that complicated to really avoid. She also starts to occasionally have orbs around her that you could use to extend the curse counter. Hitting the orbs as well allow you to deal extra damage to her than hitting her directly on her body. Get good in dodging her attacks, master her AoE slams, and after practicing her for around 2 hours, I finally get a decent run in this and eventually get the kill. So, one more boss to go before we end this run. This chromatic Cassier is very tanky unless you take care of his weak spot. In my case, I guess I got too intimidated by how he looked that I did not really pay attention to the rest of his body. Once you do break that dangling light, he becomes very easy to kill. The final merchant here also sells another Pictus that we also want. This is the full strength Pictus that adds more damage as long as the HP of our characters is at max, which is basically all the time as when we revive our characters, they revive at full health. Before our final encounter, we also get to fight this horse-like monster, the Creation. Unfortunately, he is also a complete pushover as Maelle one-turns him thanks to the painted power Pictus that you have gotten from the Paintress. This removes the damage barrier and allows you to deal more than 9999 damage. Basically upgrading Maelle's weapon into, I don't know, I guess into a ballistic missile of some sorts. You do also get the faster than strong Pictus here, but for a run, it is not that great. It halves your damage output at the cost of another turn, which you don't really need at this time. I am not sure about this, but I actually feared having my burn damage, so I did not bother equipping it and testing it out. Now, you would assume the final boss would be even harder than the Paintress, but no, not really. Renoir 3 is a lot easier than the Paintress. It took me 15 minutes of attempts to nab this boss. Honestly, I think it would have been better if they swapped it around and actually made the Paintress into the final boss. That would have been a very exciting fight and a good conclusion to this very wonderful game. So, why was he so easy compared to the Paintress? Let's try to break down the final boss of Expedition 33. Or I guess the story boss to be exact. So, why was he so easy? Let's break down the final boss of Expedition 33 and close out this chapter in this challenge run. His first phase, I guess, does not really exist as we deal too much damage for him to do his attacks on phase 1. So, on his second phase, he summons a giant painting and starts to glow, I guess. He also gets all 3 buffs for damage, speed, and defense, and he starts hitting us with that buff applied. For his attacks, he has a multi-hit combo that ends in a gradient hit, so regardless if we dodge the hits initially, we are not allowed to dodge the last hit, so might as well just take it to the face. He also has a 3-hit AoE attack, so watch out, that could again wipe your party. After getting him below 50% on phase 2, he starts flying around for quite a while, and then starts attacking your party. There is a big sound cue before each hit, so it's fairly easy to dodge compared to the Paintress, which I guess is harder to dodge because of less sound cues. He also has a 5-hit meteor attack similar to the Paintress, and timing it is also a bit confusing, so make sure to learn the timing. Now, all that aside, I guess the Paintress has just more varied moves that have much more subtle tells and make them harder to dodge and evade. You could also say that the removal of the damage cap could be a factor here. I think it's one of the main limiting factors to the burn build that we can do with Maelle, as even though we have a lot of burn stacks, damage is limited to 999, but here, it deals quite a lot more damage. This combat, by the way, shows the power of the burn build as seen in the last damage that triggered the final kill. Overall guys, I really enjoyed this challenge run and I hope you did as well watching it. It was not that difficult to pull off, but having to restrict your playstyle and being able to succeed, I guess gives you that big dopamine hit. Yeah, as always, leave a like, maybe comment down below and subscribe for more of these challenge runs. Plan to do more in the future, and I'm thinking about running into more JRPGs or turn-based combats, and maybe I do the same attack only build and see where that takes me. As always, remember, in this channel, siege the day. Thank you very much for watching.